call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Reynolds?
Here.
Mr. Mullins?
Here.
Mr. Chambers?
Here.
Ms. Shinholster?
Here.
Ms. Walden?
Here.
Dr. Lee?
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum present. Welcome everyone to our meeting this evening. If you'll stand for the prayer and pledge, please. And let's pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for the many blessings that you give us. We're thankful for everything that we have because we know it comes from you. We're thankful for this community and the neighbors and friends that we have here, and we thank you for the opportunity to serve them. We ask, Father, that you would be with us this evening and lead us and guide us in the direction that you would have us go. And we ask that you do the same with our state and national leaders as they do our business there. We ask, Father, that you be with all of those who volunteer and serve others in our communities and around the country, and certainly be with those who serve our country both in the armed forces and in the foreign services, and we ask that you keep them safe, those that are in harm's way. We ask all of these things in your holy name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council, I'll entertain a motion for the adoption of the May 27th council meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Mr. Mullins?
Aye.
Mr. Chambers?
Aye.
Ms. Shinholster?
Aye.
Ms. Walden? Dr. Lee?
Aye.
Thank you. That passes. We'll move to old business. I'll ask the clerk if he would read ordinance 010 in caption, please.
An ordinance to adopt the fiscal year 2015 annual operating budget.
I'll entertain a motion, council.
I make a motion that we approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Mr. Mullins?
Aye.
Mr. Chambers?
Aye.
Ms. Shinholster?
Aye.
Ms. Walden?
But I would like to look at the entities again.
Dr. Lee?
Aye.
Thank you. That passes. We move to new business. Ask the clerk to read resolution 023 in caption, please.
This is to cancel the June 24, 2014 City Council meeting due to the Georgia Municipal Association Annual Convention.
I'll entertain a motion, council.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Mr. Mullins?
Aye.
Mr. Chambers?
Aye.
Ms. Shinholster?
Aye.
Ms. Walden? Dr. Lee?
Thank you. That passes. That concludes our agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion that we amend the agenda to enter into executive session to discuss a personnel matter.
That's a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Personnel matter?
Yes.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Mr. Mullins?
Aye.
Mr. Chambers?
Aye.
Ms. Shinholster?
Aye.
Ms. Walden? Dr. Lee?
Aye.
Thank you, council. That amends the agenda to move in executive session, and I'll entertain a motion to do so.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Mr. Mullins?
Aye.
Mr. Chambers?
Aye.
Ms. Shinholster?
Aye.
Ms. Walden? Dr. Lee?
Aye.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you allow us a few moments to move in executive session, we shall return. Call the meeting back to order and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Reynolds,
Here?
Mr. Mullins,
Here.
Mr. Chambers,
Here.
Ms. Shinholster,
Here.
Ms. Walden,
Here.
Dr. Lee.
Here.
Do have a quorum present, and no action was taken in our executive session. There's no further business to come before council. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I would like to, request of, I'm not really sure who I need to request if this of, you or the city manager or both of you, that we, have an investigation into the events that took place or the, in relation to the events that were, discussed in the, local newspaper on the weekend.
I'm not sure either. I'll have to refer that to Mr. Jordan.
Well, with regards to if you're, Ms. Shinholster, if you're referencing the actual recording of conversations, and you have some concern about that, and this council wants to look into how that recording was done and who did it and so forth, it would basically take an action of city council, I believe, to direct the city manager to perform that investigation, because it clearly would have to have some parameters and limitations. I think you would need to be more particular with respect to what you were seeking to be investigated as to whether or not, I mean, are we talking in terms of whether or not there was any criminal activity involved, or is it a matter of simply determining who participated in the recording, or is it a matter of determining whether or not there was any criminal activity involved? I think the scope of what you are asking would need to be further clarified. I'm not saying that you have to do it now, but before I think council could consider that issue, I think council would have to, there would have to be more specificity as to what you are asking to be done.
I think one of the things that, and I can only speak for myself, many people have said many things, and I just want to be clear as to actually where the recording came from. And I guess, in terms of what you said, I think for clarification as to who did the recording, and really basically to clear that up, because you could make accusations, or you could assume, and it would be a false accusation. So I really would like for it to be clear as to where the recording came from.
Is that something that requires a vote to direct the city manager to do that, or is there something that, is it a resolution?
That would simply, Ms. Shinholster could restate her motion along the lines that she just presented it, and then I could meet with Mr. Jarrett and determine what would be appropriate under that resolution or motion to do.
Would you like to do that, Ms. Shinholster?
I would. Before I do that, I was just wanting to know if any of the other council members had anything to add, or if they're, because I'm just speaking for myself, so I can't speak for anyone else.
I guess the legality part that we're talking about is if conversation been taped in executive session and released to other people to influence our decision on things, we have a lot of things that's going on for us, real estate transaction and everything else, the negotiation. So have that been used to help someone else? Obviously, we've been taped before, so how many tapes are there out there?
Well, yeah, with regards to executive sessions, I hope that's not the case. But that could be incorporated into what Ms. Shinholster is requesting. I don't know that you will find an answer to all that, but that is, if that's what council wants to do, then that's what council needs to vote on.
Jimmy, in executive session, I mean, I'm trying to understand, I've never been taped before, so I'm just trying to figure out, what it is. In executive session, if we are in executive session, is it legal, is it legal to tape an executive session? I don't know whether it is or not.
I'm not going to provide that type of legal advice without being in an executive session, because there are a couple of issues there. Clearly, there is the attorney-client privilege, and attorney-client privilege is always difficult when you represent any type of corporate body, because the leaders of that body, in this case being the mayor and alderman, they each hold that attorney-client privilege. And of course, I will say this, under Georgia law, any particular client can basically waive that attorney-client privilege. So in other words, advice given to the group, whether it's a real estate matter, whether it's some other legal issue, of which we have had several in the past year or so. Probably any one of you can release that information by virtue of it being your right from the standpoint of that attorney-client relationship, and it's a very gray area. Obviously obviously I can't release it. And although you're acting collectively as a body, and should work as a corporate body, I'm not going to tell you that any one of you could not release information that was gathered in an executive, or what I like to call a closed session. That's my understanding of the.
Want to. I've received many phone calls. No,
Many people thinking that this conversation that was on, that the newspaper said was going on, we were not in closed session. Closed session was over with. We was out of the meeting, and we was leaving, coming here to a meeting, to the council meeting. So we were not in closed session. In fact, a council member asked a question about retaliation, and that's how it all got started. And I feel as though we need to have an investigation in order to get all this stuff clear. It's about being
loyalty. We, each one of us,
serve a district. And we get to serve
the city of Milledgeville. And it's all about being honest, and we have to be honest to one another. In order to be successful, in order to make accomplishment, we have to trust one another. It's all about being responsible. Whenever you do things, there are consequences behind everything we do. There are consequences behind things that I do. I'm just sorry that it's got to this point.
Anything else?
Well, you know, on just to add to what she said, because I look back at our ethics ordinance. I even, you know, I'm like her. I got many phone calls, and I went and started just reviewing ethics ordinances of other communities and everything. And one of the things that was general about all of the ordinances that I saw when it referred to the council relationships, one of the statements, and we have it in ours, is to create an environment of honesty, openness, and integrity. And when that and that spells trust to me. And when that trust is violated, then then when you're part of a body, you're part of a unit or a group, or you know, you could even go so far as to say a family, and then we move. We may not agree with each other at all times, but then we don't go back and stab each other in the back. And that's just the way I look at it. So, you know, before I can, and a lot of people said, well, I heard it was this person, I heard it was that person. I said, I'm not going to say who it is, because I'd like to know once the investigation is complete. Once we know, then I'll deal with it based on that. But, you know, it makes you leery, because you don't want to talk to, I mean, who can you talk to? Who can you trust if we can't talk to each other?
One thing I want to point out, and I had a conversation with Mr. Jordan on Saturday morning, the first time that I'd heard of a recording, and I asked him of the legality of the recording. And I'm going to paraphrase, but I think he basically stated that Georgia law states as long as a person is party to the conversation taking place, no matter how many people are unaware of a recording, as long as a person is party to that, then it is not considered to be an illegal recording. Is that correct? Am I overstepping bounds, or?
Now, generally, that is the law in Georgia. It's not that way in all states, but it is the law in Georgia. In fact, I think the legislature tried to modify that a couple of years back and was unsuccessful, or it didn't change. But yeah, generally that is the law in Georgia.
The reason I point that out is I'm trying to decide the need for the criminal aspect of something, I guess is what I'm, you know, you bring up the ethical part of it, and I think that certainly is a concern, but the other end of it, you know, I don't know, you know, where to step forward from here.
Yeah, and I just mentioned that as, you know, those are the options. Those are kind of the parameters. I am not in any way opining that there was any criminal conduct involved in that recording. But that is, if you're looking at the sources of that recording and so forth, there arguably could be, but not if it was done by an individual that was in attendance at the meeting.
You know, ethics and moral values are very important to me. And what I've done, I have went back to one of the class that I took with GMA with ethics. And I'm going to pass out, make sure that everybody here get a copy of this brochure dealing with ethics, because you know, it's not good when ties are broken.
Anything else, council? Ms. Shinhurst, would you like to make your motion, or you can
After
withdraw
much
it if you'd like?
After
Either way.
much discussion, I'm not really sure exactly what I'm supposed to say.
Well, you could, I mean, it hadn't been seconded, so you could actually withdraw it if you'd like, and discuss it with the with Mr. Jordan or Mr. Jarrett or anybody else as far as that goes. But
Well, I really don't want to withdraw it because we're getting ready to, we're not gonna have another meeting, and so it's gonna be, we're not gonna have another meeting this month, and when we go to Savannah, to GMA, you don't want to go as a broken unit, but I mean, that's technically what we're gonna be when we go there, and you mix and mingle with other communities and everything, and of course a lot of them are going to throw what they saw in the newspaper at us because they read it too. So at least we would hopefully we may be able to have some clarification at that time. So if I have to amend my current motion, Mr. Jordan, can you tell me one more time what it is I'm supposed to state, that I need to clarify?
Well, I mean, if you are moving to have the city manager inquire as to the source of that recording, along with, I think Mr. Mullins has asked you to include inquiry as to whether there have been any other recordings, particularly of closed sessions, then that would be your motion. Then it would be up to Mr. Jarrett to determine how he wanted to proceed with that inquiry, whether it's done through, my office, whether it's done through somebody independent of the city, whether it's done by the GBI, or whether it's done by the Milledgeville Police Department. Probably, my recommendation would be that it would be somebody independent of any of those. Obviously, I was in that conversation, and it simply would not probably be best if someone independent took a look, but that would be Mr. Jarrett's call.
I do hope the clerk was writing all of that down that you said about that motion, because I'm going to say so moved on what he said.
Whatever he said, that's what
what he said.
so the motion is whatever Mr. Jordan said. We can use that as a motion, council.
Second motion.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Reynolds,
Aye.
Mr. Mullins,
Aye.
Mr. Chambers,
Aye.
Ms. Shinholster,
Aye.
Ms. Walden,
Aye.
Dr. Lee.
Aye.
Thank you. That passes. If there's no further business to come before council, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to say one thing. On the money that was transferred, we were given, the amount of money that the city is gonna be saving from that transfer of money, and on grand totals, it was $24,000. The interest that we would have been getting if we had left it where it was at was $24,850. The money that we are gaining with the 2.1 interest rate is $107,520. We're all up here on council to look out for the best interest of this city and to be good stewards of our taxpayers' dollars and to make investments in the best interest of this city. And I think that it was in the best interest of this city to do that, and I do stand behind what I feel like that it was in the best interest to do.
What is the status of any sort of FDIC insurance on transferring that money to an account with Wells Fargo?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question.
Is there any insurance for the city's funds being in a Wells Fargo account as opposed to a standard local bank?
He's asking you, do you know if they're covered by FDIC?
I can answer that, yes.
Let me ask you one question. In my recollection of FDIC, they only insure up to $100,000.
It's $250, I think.
It's $250.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's per account.
We normally do, if we are investing $1 million, we always get in increments of $250 or less.
$250 or less.
In many cases, I actually get $100,000 each, I get 10 hundreds.
Okay.
But we always stay below, and we do that for two reasons.
So the Wells Fargo is FDIC insured.
The funds are, yes.
I would also like to add that as part of our service to this community, we are here to serve the public trust. And the definition of integrity is doing the right thing when no one is watching. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we are adjourned.